This morning, the Big Apple could be a target for Iranian terrorists.
And joining us this morning from Washington, D.C. with some insight into this threat is Congressman Peter King. He is chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. And thank you, Congressman King. Let's talk about this. Yesterday, when you took questions from Secretary Napolitano there in a hearing, you were able to come out and say that this was not a credible or not specific threat, but New York is the #1 target. Is that correct?
Yes, there's no doubt we are very concerned about Iran, through Hezbollah, carrying out a terrorist attack in the United States, and New York would be the #1 target. And even though there is no specific evidence of a specific threat, the general thinking among the intelligence community, among the NYPD, is that we have to be on our guard, that there's much more of a threat now than there's ever been before to have Hezbollah attack us. There's been a change in thinking among Iranians as to whether or not they should attack the U.S. We believe they do want to attack the U.S. They would use Hezbollah, and New York would be the main target.
When you saw the video of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad looking at the facility, touring it, was it a lot of posturing, or was it a real concern for us that they are very close to developing nuclear weapons?
No, there's no doubt they are extremely close to developing nuclear weapons. There might be some dispute between us and the Israelis as to really just a difference of months as to how soon they can do it. There's no doubt they are on the verge of having perfected nuclear weapons. And that is, Israel has said it will not allow Iran to become a nuclear power. President Obama has made it clear he does not want Iran to be a nuclear power, and that's where the potential collision is, and that's why the tension is so high right now. And Iran, if anything, is escalating the tension. You know, we saw just back in December when we stopped the plot, they were going to kill a Saudi ambassador and kill hundreds of Americans in Washington, D.C., that they have now made a decision that they are willing to attack the United States. And we know even several years ago in New York, the NYPD apprehended two Iranian officials, two Iranian goons, actually, who were photographing key sites in New York City.
Representative King, you mentioned a shift possibly in their approach as far as this possible threat goes. Is there a shift? Are you adjusting to that shift with the way we're preparing and the way we're trying to stay safe?
You know, first let me say no one prepares better than the NYPD. And Commissioner Kelly and what his people are doing is phenomenal, and it's so wrong when elements in the media like the New York Times or the Civil Liberties Union attack the NYPD. They are doing exactly what has to be done. At the national level, I can assure you, the FBI, the CIA, all of the federal intelligence agencies are taking this extremely seriously. General Clapper, who's the head of he's the director of national intelligence, he has testified publicly that he believes that Iran now is a threat to attack the United States. So all of our intelligence assets in this country, federal, state, and local, are working to try to stop this attack from happening. And the bottom line is, if they arrive and they're ready to carry out the attack, it's very difficult to stop them. That's why intelligence is so important. That's why it's so important to get people in the community come forward. Why it's so important that we work closely with our allies and stop this before it becomes operational.
Congressman Peter King, thank you so much for joining us live from Washington, D.C. as the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Thank you again.
The question is, will Iran strike inside the United States? Out front tonight, Peter King, chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security. Good to talk to you, sir. Appreciate this.
Thank you,
I know that you have been briefed, and obviously Mr. Clapper has briefed you on many of the details, and you've been told there's no specific plot at this time. Are you satisfied with the intelligence that you've been getting?
Erin, I am, because even though there's no specific plot, the intelligence community does believe that an attack could very well happen. Right now, a threat from Iran, a possible attack from Iran, is the greatest threat we face, and every threat stream is being tracked down. So while there's no specific threat, we're assuming, we have to assume that one could occur. That's why the NYPD, and by the way, I agree totally with Mitch Silva, that we have to assume that Hezbollah would be the proxy for Iran and could well carry out the attack. So no, I am convinced CIA, FBI, NSA, DIA, all of them, plus local police like the NYPD, are working 24/7 on this.
And has this changed? I mean, now you're saying that that Iran is the greatest threat for a terror attack in the United States, whether they do it through Hezbollah, proxy, or otherwise. Has that changed? Has the recent rhetoric and conversation raised that threat level or not?
Yeah, it really has. There's been several things. One is obviously the tremendous tension in the Middle East with Israel and Iran, and the fact that Iran is getting so close to having a weapon, nuclear weapon. Secondly is the fact that back in December, we stopped the plot of the attack upon or the assassination attempt on the Saudi ambassador with the attempt to blow up Cafe Milano, which would have killed hundreds of Americans. That was really crossing a red line. And all the chatter that's out there, just the general consensus among everyone in the intelligence community is that right now Iran and Hezbollah would be the #1 threat to the United States. Also, unlike Al-Qaeda, which is still a very serious threat, or at least the offshoots of Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah is a state-trained terrorist organization. That is really the major leagues of terrorism. And if Iran launches Hezbollah, then there's a real concern.
And if the United States were to, when you have these conversations with security officials, if say the United States were to intervene or arm the opposition in Syria, Syria being a place that Iran's ally, or Iran has been very involved, does that put America and Americans at home at greater risk of these sorts of attacks, in your view?
Yes, it does. That can't be enough to stop us from doing whatever we feel we have to do. But I would say even the tightening of the sanctions increases the risk. I think obviously if we get engaged with Syria or with Iran ultimately and a confrontation with Israel, then yes, that definitely increases the likelihood that Iran and or Hezbollah would strike within the United States. And we're assuming that. We're assuming, which is why we're trying to monitor everyone in this country who has had contacts with Hezbollah in the past, who was associated with Hezbollah. Some are just into fundraising, others are facilitators. We're monitoring them very, very carefully.
Do you think that there could already be an Iranian or Hezbollah sleeper cell in the United States, given that there have been reports, and again suspected, unconfirmed, that Iran could have been involved in those bombing targets in the past few days for Israeli officials overseas?
Erin, we have to assume that they are, and that's certainly what Mitch Silber was making clear in his op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. This is what Iran has done in Argentina years ago. It's certainly what they're now doing overseas in Thailand and India, in Georgia. So no, we have to assume that. Again, we hope not, but we assume they do. And that's why I can tell you there is a tremendous amount of counter-terror activity by all the elements of the U.S. intelligence community right across the board, and also state and local.
Just about the rhetoric, I'm just wondering, some people say, well, look, the rhetoric's overblown. You all keep talking about this. This really, that's part of the problem. I mean, what do you say to those criticisms? This is more about rhetoric than reality.
No, you take some, again, I'm a Republican saying this. I have no reason to be defending a Democratic administration for political reasons. When you have people like General Clapper and General Petraeus, when you have really across the board in the intelligence community in this administration, all the leaders saying how concerned they are about an attack from Iran, a possible attack from Iran or Hezbollah, when you have the NYPD, which has the best local counterterrorism unit in the entire country, which also works this 24/7, and you see what Iran is doing overseas, we would be negligent in not talking about it, because it's important to alert local governments, local communities, especially if anyone in their community sees any activity or sees anything unusual, to call the police, call the FBI.
All right, well, thank you very much, Representative King. We appreciate it.